If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank LOTIERZO, former writer, trying to be a full-time observer, joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, Jack Hirsch. Jack, there's some things to talk about this weekend, some boxing, some other things related to boxing. As you can see, I've been down the shore. I have a little color. I feel a little better.
Frank. You look different. I'm not saying you necessarily look better. I think you do look marginally better than normally, so I'll give you that much.
Sure, I was too pale before. I hate that.
I'm stingy with the compliments, but you're looking okay. You're looking all right. I mean, you're looking.
And I don't burn. I usually get dark. I don't burn. I guess that's the Italian in me. I guess the oil skin just kind of blocks the sun and it acts as a block. Anyhow,
yeah, go ahead.
We're going to get to the Knicks and we're going to talk about some other things, but there was a fight this weekend between Bam Rodriguez and Vargas. At 118, they fought. I am a big fan of Bam, Jack, as you know. And he looked pretty good in this fight. I see a lot of things regarding the media and social media about him and Inoue, and I even see some people foolishly think it's a 50-50 fight. I don't know. Did you see the fight? And what did you think?
I saw the replay because the Knick game was going on when Bam was fighting. And so there's no way I'm watching Bam. But all of a sudden, and I'll be honest, when the Knick game was going on in the second half, I completely forgot about Bam because the Knicks were the big story, especially if you're from New York. And they had the post-game NBA show, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, Bam's fighting. Let me put on the zone, while I'm watching the post-game show to multitask. And the fight was over, and they were saying how good Bam looked. So I watched the replay the next day, and I had mixed feelings. Frank, offense and defense are supposed to go hand in hand in boxing. We're not supposed to distinguish between the two. But if I had to rate Bam, I'll give him an A for what he showed offensively, an A plus. Great footwork. His punches, the assortment were outstanding. Defensively, he was getting hit a little too much for my liking.
Jack, Bam did everything he always does, but it didn't work nearly as well because I think at 118, which means he cannot beat Inoue. As you said, he has great footwork. He confuses his opponents, but Vargas just waited him out, punched right back. We know Vargas is pretty good technically, and he came in with a good fight plan. Let Bam do his stuff, then counterpunch, and always end the exchanges. Vargas landed a lot of shots, won at least half of the first 4 rounds. And he may have even won 3. The announcers were talking about how Bam brought his power up to 118. I didn't see it. He's a great fighter, but I think he gets hit. He gets hit even more moving up in weight. I think 18 is a ceiling. It may even be beyond it. He made Vargas look like a featherweight in there. He kept talking about how much Vargas had, how much pop he had in his punches. And he also mentioned how strong he was. Jack, to me, Vargas didn't look like a big puncher on or an unusually strong guy. I think Bam's statements were more of a reflection on him facing a 118-pounder.
But you know what it is, Frank? In a perfect world, Bam would be able to have a mega fight with an opponent his size. In a perfect world, it doesn't work that way in boxing. No. You got to take the mega fight when it presents itself. You have to adjust your weight class sometimes. We even hear talk of David Benavidez. He's willing to go down to 175 if need be, which I think would be a big mistake trying to lose all that weight. You know,
I do too, Jack, but he has fought there, and it's like.
But he has, but eventually, if Bam is going to continue to fight, and we don't know how much longer he's going to fight. For all we know, Bam's going to fight 7, 8 more years. For all we know, he's certainly young enough he could do that. And if he did, he's unlikely to be able to maintain that same weight and be in the same weight class. You may as well let him have the shot within a way, because if he doesn't take that fight, he might never get a mega fight. Look, the greatest fighters are waiting forever, it seems, for mega fights. Sometimes they never get it. Look, we had a great fighter like Mike McCallum. He never got the mega fight. There have been others like him who never quite got the mega fight. This is Bam's mega fight in a way. And they're also thinking, Eddie Hearn, Bam's promoter, maybe in a way slipping a little based on the way he looked against Nakatani in his last fight, that maybe Bam could actually beat this guy. That's what they're thinking.
I think, look, Jack, I think that's possible what they're thinking. But look, I just don't think Bam is big enough. They say he's 5'4". Okay, I think 115 is his ceiling. Going up to 122 to face one of the hardest punchers in recent memory I just think it's too steep of a mountain to climb. And I also think the style contrast works against Bam for the fact that he's a counter puncher. He likes to back up and draw guys in and tries to get them to lead and then counter them. Well, you went to a big fight, or I think you were at the fight. I know we both saw it. That was the contrast in styles between Quarry and Frazier when they fought. And the problem is, when you have a dynamo like Inouye or Frazier, they throw so many punches that you can't counter them, and you're drawn in to trying to fight them off. And I just don't see any way Bam could fight Inouye off and beat him. But does he have to take the fight? Yes. It's about money. That's why they fight. It's the biggest fight out there. And maybe, as you said, he catches him a little, on the downturn, and maybe he could get lucky.
Frank, you're old school. If it was up to you, you would get rid of a lot of these extra weight divisions. You'd get rid of them. And I believe you'd have all the traditional 8-weight classes, add cruiserweight to it as a 9th one, maybe raise the weights a little bit, but whatever. So to think old school, if we didn't have all these weight divisions, it's fair to say that Bam would be the world bantamweight champion, and in a way would be the world featherweight champion. They'd be only one division apart, and bantamweight champions have been known to challenge featherweight champions for the title. I think we're getting caught up in these artificial weight classes. Oh, it's 2 weight classes. Don't jump up, too much. They were saying the same thing about Terence Crawford initially when the talk first started for him to fight Canelo. That was everyone's biggest concern. Crawford can't jump up 3 weight divisions. It's unheard of. But the actual poundage wasn't nearly as great as people, initially
But
thought.
Jack, I think it's different when you're above 150. I think when you're small and you take the smaller guys, I do think it's more of an issue. I mean, look at Wilfredo Gomez. He went up how many pounds to fight Sanchez? 4 pounds. 4 pounds. And he got demolished. And even though he won a title at featherweight, he was never that guy again. And we saw what happened to him when he fought at 26 and 30. It's a bridge too far for the lower weight guys, I think.
I think your example of Wilfredo Gomez, even though technically you're correct, Frank, we know Gomez had these issues, these problems, okay, outside the ring. There was talk substance abuse and so on. And
But Jack, I don't think that was a factor before that fight. I don't remember reading that before that fight.
Well, you're not going to read a guy if he's on something. You're not.
But the rumors could have been out there, but there was no signs of him slipping. In fact, I even think he was the favorite in that fight.
Yeah, listen.
A slight favorite, 7-5.
Sanchez deserves full credit, but I can give you other examples, like fighters like Fighting Harada, who moved up in weight, since we're talking a Japanese fighter, bantamweight champion, was featherweight champion. I mean, there are instances of guys moving up. Manny Pacquiao. Look at all the weight divisions he moved up. Why can't Bam be a nice imitation of Manny Pacquiao and move before his career's over? Move up 2, 3 weight classes.
Jack, he can be. But the guys you just named, Pacquiao, Crawford, they are certified without a doubt. There's no doubt about it. Nobody that knows anything about this sport will question that they are both all-time greats, bona fide. You can make them, they're probably in the top 10. I think they both are in their weight class. We don't know if Bam is that. Now, look, if he goes up and he does that, then we will look at him that way. But remember, before Pacquiao did it, there were a lot of naysayers about that, about him doing that. Usually that's not the case, but there have been some guys that turned out to be all-time greats. I think Bam has potential to be perhaps a great. I don't think he's an all-time great, where I'm more comfortable saying Inouye is closer to being an all-time great than him. So it's like, again, you got him going up against a guy who's not just moved up, but who's an all-time great.
Bam has been impressive in every fight in his career so far.
But he's not an all-time great.
No, he hasn't had a chance to become one. He's got to fight a few more years, at least, for that to happen. But if I told you now, we just had the whole International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend. If I told you if Bam never fought again, if he retired, you can make a decent case for him that he's a Hall of Famer right now. You certainly would in a way as well.
But Jack, a Hall of Famer and an all-time great is a lot different.
Yeah.
Do you think everybody in the Hall of Fame is an all-time great? I don't.
For him to be an all-time great and be considered as such, he's gotta beat a guy like Inouye. He's not gonna.
You're right.
So in it.
But I just said that. But I just can't make the case before the fact.
But from
what I've seen, Jack, he can't do it. I would bet a lot of money he can't do it. But if he did, I'd be wrong.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe my impression of what you're saying is wrong. You seem to be telling him or advising him, if he would listen to his people, don't take the fight with Inouye. You don't want him to take that fight. That's the way it seems. You think it'll be bad for him. Don't take the risk.
Jack, if I was part of his team and the money was make a difference money in your life altering money, I mean, of course you're going to take the shot and you do the best. But inside, I would be saying to myself, and I would never admit it to anyone else, I think this is a bridge too far for 2 reasons. He's not big enough, and I think this style works against him. So even if they were the same size, he might have a problem. But I just think, as much as I think of him, I just think Inouye is just a different level. I think he's sort of like, look, we've had heavyweight punchers and we've had George Foreman, okay? A guy that could take off for 10 years, come back, and in 35 fights in his second career, nobody could back him up. Okay, nobody else could do that. Ron Lyle tried to come back. Shavers tried to come back. Joe Frazier tried to come back. Joe Louis tried to come back. None of them could do it. Okay, I think Inouye is on that level where when he's retired, we may look at him in that vein.
We very well might. And he just had his biggest challenge against Nakatani, and it was a very competitive fight. A very, very competitive fight, and some people felt it was a close fight, that went the distance. But remember what they said when Pacquiao signed to fight Oscar De La Hoya. Well, he's too small. Oscar's too big, and that was the mentality. And it turned out to be a one-sided fight, like a lot of people thought. But for the littler guy,
do you think Pacquiao would have beat the best De La Hoya? I don't.
That is a great question.
He fought De La Hoya, who had one fight in 3 years, sucked down and wait, and he looked like an empty package from day one. Look, the speed was going to bother him, but I don't think he beats De La Hoya that fought Vargas or Trinidad or Mosley.
I'll go step. The Pacquiao I saw beat Miguel Cotto in Las
which is the
Vegas.
best fight of his
Okay?
life.
The best fight of his life, I think, does beat the best version of Oscar. Yeah, because Pacquiao throws so many punches nonstop, every angle. Oscar's not going to slow him down. Oscar would fight with him and have his good moments of success, but Oscar's not going to slow him down enough to control him.
See, I think Pacquiao to me is not a good defensive fighter. I think Oscar's length, straight punching, and right hands, I think they would blunt him, sort of like what Ugas did to an older Pacquiao. So,
well, we'll never know.
That's what I would think. And Jack, you're taking what I'm saying wrong. I'm not saying that Bam, if Bam beat Inouye, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I would just lose money. That's all. And I think Inouye is, I just think when they both retire, that Inouye will go down as a greater fighter historically and more of a legend than Bam. I could be wrong, but I also think, I mean, Inouye can punch. He has fast hands. He puts pressure on you, and he's not a slugger. He is smart. He knows how to counter. He can pretty much do everything, and he's a mean guy. I just think it's a bad style matchup with Bam, and he's too big.
I'm going to wait till the fight gets signed, if it does get signed, and then I would analyze the matchup more. They're both great fighters. Both Inouye and Bam are both great fighters.
Jack, I just think that the crowd got ahead of, and again, I have to make this clear. This is like when I debate quarterbacks, and I'm a little bit tough on Dan Marino. I was a huge Dan Marino fan, but because of that, I know his flaws and how bad he was in big games. But I just think it's a bridge too far. And my point is, I just think as good as he looked, I think it's a little bit of subterfuge there for the fact that, you know, he had the 2-point rounds, and that's why he was up by 2 points. But as you said, he got hit a lot, and I just don't think he was as overwhelming as people thought. And I thought the weight and the strain of the bigger guy really showed up. And I just think if he goes up against a guy like Inouye, you know, it'll be a big problem. But you know what? I've been wrong plenty of times.
I mean, let's see if they make the fight. From Inouye's perspective, what else is he going to do? He doesn't necessarily need a big fight. He's just had a mega fight in Japan, one of the biggest fights in Japanese boxing.
You don't think Inouye wants to chase featherweight and get another belt?
I don't know how Inouye feels about belts per se. Inouye just had a mega fight, okay, against Nakatani in Japan, biggest fight in Japanese boxing history on their soil. He might want a breather type fight next. I don't know how motivated he is at this point. There's a little talk of a possible rematch even with Nakatani that could do big business there as well. We just don't know. I mean, maybe it's better this. Wouldn't it be great if guys had there an opportunity, Bam would fight Nakatani instead, and the winner of that fight goes against Inoue? Wouldn't that be a wonderful way of doing things?
I could live with that. Jack, one more thing about Inouye, okay? Because I've had people tell me we don't talk about him enough, and they may be right. I believe that when we see him lose, it's going to be because he pushed his body one weight class too far. Like you say, it's 2 pounds, 4 pounds, but eventually it's 12 pounds and 14 pounds. And I just think when we see him lose, it'll be because he pushed his body too far and he hit the limit. I can't see somebody smaller than him coming up to beat him because, Jack, a lot of times when we see smaller guys move up and fight bigger guys, a lot of people talk about the weight. Oh, it's a big deal. But 9 out of 10 times, the smaller guy is the better fighter. Crawford was a better fighter than Canelo. Pacquiao was a better fighter than Cotto. But the thing here is, Inouye, I'm not sure Bam is a better fighter. And when you get the guys grouped in that weight class together, I think the size makes a difference, and the fact that like it's not like Bam has a predominant advantage being the better fighter. But look at Roy Jones. He moves up to fight Ruiz. Now, look, he would not have beat Lennox Lewis, but he beat a solid heavyweight, a guy that had a legit belt, and because why? He was the superior fighter. Leonard moves up, fights Hagler. You know what? He was the better boxer.
Yeah, Ruiz having a legit belt. He had a belt. He had the WBA title. I mean,
but he had some good wins, Jack, at heavyweight. It wasn't like he was a paper tiger.
Ruiz was a legitimate top 4 heavyweight. You know,
top 4 or 5 heavyweight. Absolutely.
Right. And one of the top few heavyweights in the world at that time, and that's a noteworthy achievement. One word has gotten crossed off the boxing list. The word contender used to have a lot of prestige. Now a guy's considered a contender. I mean, it just doesn't have the same kind of, no pun intended, the same ring to it.
Well, Jack, if you count the belts and you have 4 different guys that each have a belt, well, there's the top 4 contenders right there.
You know what I was thinking? The Bam fight. Like I told you, I saw it on replay because the Knicks were playing. There was a lot of turmoil in the streets after the Knicks, won their title predictably. It reflected very poorly on New York City, and I don't want to hear the argument, well, it's only the minority. The majority of fans oppose this violence. Of course, the majority of fans oppose violence. Of course. We know that all over. And the majority of serial murderers are going to say what they're doing is wrong as well. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. But there have been incidents in boxing in the past that kind of got me to think the way the sport has evolved in a certain way. Madison Square Garden at one time would have some riots. It was a problem. And the Puerto Rican fans were behind it. One of their favorites, the rematch between Jose Torres and Dick Tiger. Tiger wins a close decision, scored 8-7 by all 3 judges on a rounds basis. Tiger did deserve the decision. He really did, but it was very close. Torres came on late in the fight. They rioted. There was a fight with Ismael Laguna, former lightweight champion, against a decent fighter named Frankie Navarez at the Garden. Laguna, from Panama, legitimately won the fight. Navarez, a New York Puerto Rican. The Puerto Rican fans tore up the Garden then. And of course, in the UK, who could forget when Marvin Hagler beat Alan Minter to win the world middleweight title? You see Hagler on his knees, holding his hand up, crowned champion.
Right.
They had to rush him out of the ring because there was a near riot. And
Cosell had to interview him in the locker room.
And I was at a full-fledged riot when Andrew Golota, got disqualified against Riddick Bowe in the first fight. And I'm going to tell you this, you're going to laugh about this in a way. My credentials were, I was sitting in the Polish section. And when the fight ended, I froze, and you're not thinking clearly as the riot is starting. I'm thinking, is anyone call the police? It's on HBO, as if I'm wondering whether they got word. I ran to the press room, hoping I'm not getting stopped, not getting hit, ducked in there, figuring I could have some safety in there until things kind of spilled over. But it's scary when you're in like one of these mass riots.
I was at one, Jack, and it's funny that you say it because guess what fighter it involved? Andrew Golota. When he fought Michael Grant in Atlantic City, a guy got stabbed after the fight right outside on the boardwalk. They fought at the convention center, which is now Boardwalk Hall.
I was at that fight, but I wasn't aware there was trouble after.
Yeah. Do you remember how rowdy the Golota fans were? And they would parade in a group and walk around and look for trouble?
Oh, tell me, listen to this. Golota was fighting once at medieval times, was it? I think it was medieval times, or the Prudential Center. I think it was medieval times, if I'm not mistaken. The fight's over. I'm in the men's room over there. Some Polish guys come in, a little rowdy, really rowdy. So
Yeah,
of
his
course,
fans were
I'm
scary.
nervous. I go, Galata, Galata, Galata. I go, next champion, Galata. And the guy looks at me thoughtfully and says, that man, meaning Galata, is very dangerous. And I'm thinking, so are you. And I'm going, Galata, as I go out the door, Galata, Galata, just to appease the guy. And when I got out of there, oh man, I couldn't move.
When I was at the Galata Grant fight, there was a security guard that was sitting right next to me on the edge. He didn't have a seat. My seat was at the edge of the aisle, and he was kneeling there because he could see the trouble was starting. And we looked at each other and we rolled our eyes like, "Oh, this isn't good." But yeah, his fans were very rowdy, and imagine what it would be like today with them taking pictures and social media and how they would be doing things to get attention. Where back in 96, 97, 98, that wasn't the case.
Let me ask you this. How would social media have treated the first Ali Frazier fight? Now, you couldn't have a watch party in the streets because it wasn't on free television. The NBA finals are on free television.
Right.
It's not pay-per-view. So they're not going to have big screens in the streets. You know, people to get in are going to have to pay. What kind of trouble could have taken place?
You mean because of the decision?
Well, not the factions, the Ali faction, you know, and so on. I mean, what I kind of wonder.
I think it was a different world then, Jack. I don't think it would have been that bad. I think what would have been a problem is if, as we saw in the closed circuit, I believe it was in Pittsburgh, one of the closed circuit showings, they lost the picture and the people tore the auditorium apart. I think something like that is more apt back then than actual. I don't think the Ali Frazier factions, I don't think they were quite that rowdy then, even though we know that, you know, Ali made Frazier kind of the conservative and pro-war guy, and the anti-war and the left were more of an Ali fan.
Wait, Frank. Ali, after the weigh-in, had to sleep in a cot in the arena to take a nap because he didn't want to go back to his hotel because the crowds were so annoying.
Exactly, but what does that have to do with a riot or anything? They just, because he was like Jesus to them back then, and they all wanted to touch him. And the security said, "We can't give you protection. We can't guarantee that we can get you back to the hotel safely." And while all that's going on, Frazier snuck out the back.
Yeah, I just feel if it was in this day and age, if it was in Madison Square Garden, there would be a ton of pay-per-view places. People would be able to watch it in their homes or whatever. I guess people would pay the amount of money, go Radio City Music Hall or whatever, all the venues. There would be some type of difficulty afterwards with the Ali faction. I kind of have
You think?
to believe
Okay.
that. I mean,
I was like 13 then, so I probably wasn't as tuned in culturally. But I just don't remember. I don't remember the animosity being, other than maybe in the papers. But I don't remember it being.
Oh, you're right. The animosity wasn't off the wall like that. There were a lot of protests outside the garden, this and that. But everyone wanted to watch the fight, so you didn't have the mass gathering like you had for the Knicks Spurs series. For the Knicks Spurs series, you had all these young people. They didn't care that much about the Knicks, you know, in New York. They wanted the Knicks to win. They were cheering them on loud, but they weren't basketball fans. Inside Madison Square Garden, you weren't going to get a riot if the Knicks were going to lose the series to the Spurs because it's a different crowd. But
I just can't. Go ahead. I just can't see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
But Jack, I just can't see the purpose. And I'll use the Knicks championship. I just can't see the purpose of setting a school bus on fire, because your team won the championship. I don't understand that. And then rioting and breaking windows and smashing cars and breaking store windows because your team won the championship. And we're just talking about Ali Frazier. Jack, think about this. The last time the Knicks won the championship was 2 years after that fight.
Yeah, but most people who protest, unfortunately, most young people,
Weren't
it's
born.
less about the protest than it being an outing, a happening, something to do. Listen, if I were 22 years old, Frank, what would myself and my friends be doing? We'd probably be heading to Manhattan outside Madison Square Garden because it's exciting. It's the in place to be. Be on the streets, the crowd.
But
the
would you be
people.
smashing windows after they won?
No, heck no. But to young people, you have, I don't want to say they're all thugs who smash windows. Sometimes you lose your sense of reality. It's all like a big joke here, jumping on top of the ambulance, doing this, doing that. It's like a big joke.
Jack, I really think social media has a lot to do with it. And we didn't
Yeah.
grow up in that era, but I really do. Because think how fast they can organize to be somewhere. I mean, in an hour, you can just text how many people and just, or you have an app or something and they know where to go. And that's kind of why the cops have a hard time keeping up with it, because now they organize these things and these street mobs on certain apps. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but law enforcement, if they were given the okay to be extra tough, and if the legal system was going to be extra tough, they could squash it. Believe
Jack,
me, if
I
yeah,
agree 100%. That's the problem. If they press charges, the charges get dropped or nothing happens. And then they just go out and you have recidivism again.
and they do it again. Right. Someone jumps on top of an ambulance, okay? Just doing that in itself, sometimes young people want to have fun, Frank. It's what it is. There should be a penalty, but I'm not out for blood as far as they're concerned. But you get on top of a citizen's car and you smash his window because you happen to catch someone in the street in their car because it's a big joke to you. You break into someone's business, smash the glass, steal his stuff? Come down hard on this guy. Or a police officer is trying to arrest someone to restore order, and someone comes up behind the officer and hits him. I mean, I'm for the harshest penalty. And believe me, the people committing these crimes, if they were put away for a while and everyone knew the penalties, oh no, I'm not doing that.
I agree.
I'm not getting caught.
There's no responsibility. There's no repercussions.
No,
And let me tell you something.
issue. But I kind of wondered the boxing riots. Look, after the Jack Johnson, Jim Jeffries fight, there were big riots in the streets because that was a racial thing at the time. White society, being as
Couldn't handle
racist
Johnson, right?
as being as racist as they were, white society couldn't handle the idea of Johnson beating a hero, a mythical champion like Jim Jeffries. So they rioted. If you were a black person, it was best to stay indoors because the numbers were against you. You were going to get lynched out there, arguably. So it's nothing new, but sometimes you have to know to keep away from, certain areas, certain things. Look, I saw the Cooney Holmes fight in a closed circuit. I saw it in a theater in Staten Island.
I saw it in Cherry Hill.
Right. So we went that far away. But when I left the theater with my friend to go to a diner, what I recall is a bunch of, older black men on the corner laughing and taunting us. And I'm thinking to myself, but I wasn't rooting for Cooney and I was rooting for Holmes. I was just there to see a good fight. Basically, I don't care who, won, the white guy, the black guy, but it was along racial lines to people. Now, the guys who were taunting me, how many of them were actually boxing fans? I'm a hardcore boxing fan. I was there to see the fight. There were no issues that I had societal in the slightest, with either guy. But it's not like that in a lot
I
of
told you, I
sporting
almost got
events.
into a fight at the Holmes Cooney fight closed circuit because
No.
I was cheering for Holmes.
Now, let me ask you
Yeah.
this, Frank LOTIERZO. You committed, let's say this was a few days ago, a week ago. You had committed some violations, some crimes, Frank LOTIERZO, and I gave you your choice, Frank. 3 years in jail, you don't get out early, or you have to do the following two things. You have to go to Philadelphia Eagle Giant game dressed up in your Giant gear, and I'm having you walk all over the place during the game, in the corridor, in the parking lot, here, there. You're as visible as could be for about an hour before the game and then after the whole bit. Or you can wear a San Antonio Spurs thing in the crowd in Manhattan with all the people out there, the jacket, the hat, the whole thing. What would you do? Which one would you take?
Of those three choices,
Yeah.
I would probably take the jail because at least I'll be alive. You know, and I think going to the Eagles game with a Giants or Cowboys jersey on and I have to parade it and be a little bit arrogant, I think that might even be scarier than going into the Knicks crowd or the Spurs jersey on. That'd be pretty tough.
I hear it's terrible with the Philadelphia Eagles fans. It's horrendous.
Well, remember they had and Joe Bergman, I know you're listening. Remember, it's the only place where they had to have a court at the stadium. You know that, right?
A court? What do you mean?
That they had a municipal court and a judge at the stadium that he would hear you and they would press charges with you right then and there. You didn't know that?
No, the judge was probably biased towards the Eagles.
Jack, he was a Philadelphia judge. And what they did was if the security guards or the cops caught you doing anything, they would issue you a citation right there. And you would have to go down in the cellar of Veterans Stadium and they would have a hearing right then and there. They had that for a few years. Google that.
Did that work?
It cut their violence down.
Wow, I kind of like that. That's cool. Wow,
see right there. And Joe Bergman just verified they had a jail there. Yes.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
That's how crazy that the Philadelphia fans are. Especially the Eagles fans. They're
fans, not all Philadelphia fans. Wait. I went to a Met Philly game a few years ago in Philadelphia. Okay? I'm not a
Phillies fans aren't as bad. They're not bad.
No, Philly fans.
And Sixers fans aren't bad either.
That was right. The Knicks fans went to Philadelphia to see the Knicks play the Sixers in the playoffs, and it wasn't that bad. If anything, the Knicks fans were taking over the arena at times, traveling to it. But in boxing too, Tim Witherspoon fought a fight. I think his name was Alicia Castillo, as I remember, in Atlantic City.
I remember him.
Towards the end of Witherspoon's career. Witherspoon wins a decision. Now, my scoring was probably off base because most people think Witherspoon legitimately won the fight and he did get the decision. But I'm walking out with Bernard Fernandez and I make a comment to Bernard, strictly talking to Bernard, I had it scored a draw. A guy overheard me. He was ready to fight. I was getting nervous. He says, a draw. How could you have it a draw? The guy was getting ready to fight with me. I couldn't get away from this guy quick enough either. It scared me for a moment.
I just can't imagine how people could have their ego so tied up to that. But Jack, now Joe Bergman was saying earlier not to be nice to me. So it's going to be hard for me to take a shot at you here, but I'm going to take a little shot at you.
Yeah, sure.
I watched the UFC card last night from the White House.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, it was the best UFC card I ever saw. It was the most enjoyable time I ever had watching the UFC. Now, the answer to that is why. There really weren't any mismatches. It's the first time in the history of the UFC that every fight on the card ended in a stoppage. All the fights basically were won standing up. There were no submissions. They were all stoppages. But guess who was there?
Oh, Tyson Fury.
And guess what he said?
About the fight being in Los Angeles?
That he and Dana White have an announcement coming soon, and the temptation and the speculation is it's going to be perhaps Joshua. So my point is this: you were a little bit dismissive of Dana White's place in boxing and how he would do. He's not going to run Eddie Hearn or Bob Arum out of the business, but as I said, he is going to be a big player. And as long as he's in it, he's going to cause a lot of guys headaches.
Let me say this. Tyson Fury, there was speculation he wouldn't be allowed to come into the United States.
Exactly. That was another
He had
point.
an association with Daniel Killahan, notorious criminal and the whole bit, okay? Who's on the Justice Department's most wanted list. They just caught him, to this, to that, whatever. But the President of the United States obviously has a lot of pull with the Justice Department. So
and he's buddies with Dana.
And he's buddies with Dana. Now, let's see what unfolds. I don't like partly what Eddie Hearn is saying. Eddie Hearn is saying they have the contract that it has to take place in the UK, that Dana White and Zuffa cannot be promoters of the fight. That's what Eddie Hearn is saying contractually. But Eddie Hearn is leaving the door open to possibly, well, if Turkey is the money guy, but in the meantime, he's still saying we plan for the fight to be in the UK, but he's leaving the door open. If this fight winds up in Los Angeles, first of all, to me, it's a complete fiasco. If there was ever a fight made for the UK, this is it. That is a slap in the face to everyone in the UK. And if I'm a fan in the UK,
it's not going to happen here, Jack. It's not going to happen here.
Well, but Dana White staked this claim where it is. Something is going to give one way or the other. Now, Joshua holds the cards here. If he doesn't want to go to LA, he insists it has to be in the UK. That's not going to be a fight. I think Tyson Fury isn't going to be loyal to the people in the UK. But if this fight takes place in Los Angeles, and I'm a boxing fan, and I was a fan of Joshua this whole time, my attitude is, screw you. I don't give a darn if you lose. Why don't you retire? You don't give a darn about us at all. You're fighting in Los Angeles? I mean, can you imagine the Knicks, just for fun, if they had a choice? Oh, no, we're not going to play our home games against the Spurs at Madison Square Garden. We're going to play them in Wembley Stadium in the UK. Can you imagine that if you're a Knicks fan? Your attitude would be, screw you, I'm no longer a Knicks fan. I don't want to know from you. You could lose to the Spurs now for all I care. That should be the attitude in the UK. And if Eddie Hearn relents and this fight takes place in Los Angeles, how is he going to justify it?
It won't, Jack. Fury will fight in LA, but he won't fight Joshua there. For basically the reasons you said. It's not going to happen in LA.
No, but that's what the talk is.
That's just to get attention.
Fury's supposed to have a tune-up fight. Yeah, maybe it would take place in LA. But who cares about his tune-up fight? It could be anywhere. I mean, listen, Joshua's having his tune-up fight against Christian Prang in Saudi Arabia. Who cares what tune-up fights are? But they've talked a long time, Fury and Joshua. How can it not be in the UK? They have 80,000 seats or so at Wembley Stadium. You're not going to get a bigger venue.
Many people, Jack, how many people in the United States care about Joshua or Fury?
I'm going to tell you, I care about Joshua and Fury if it's in the UK. If they fight in Los Angeles, I'm put off. I'm even put off. And I'm not from the UK. I mean, the whole idea, what adds to making it a monumental event is the whole country of England stops. It's an imitation, a long range imitation of Ali Frazier. Long range. It's not in the same class as Ali Frazier, obviously, but it's a generational fight for the UK. A generational fight, and my feeling is something's got to give. Dana White is not going to sit idly by and not be part of the promotion and not have his fingerprints in this. But then at the same time, Eddie Hearn's got the contract. He controls Joshua. Unless Joshua throws us the biggest surprise of all, he pulls a Conor Ben and leaves Eddie Hearn, that would be a shocker, but anything's possible. It's a tug of war. There's got to be some. Yeah.
Everything you just said, I don't have an issue with it, but I can just, excuse me, I can add two things. One about Joshua and Fury and the other about last night's event. Regarding Joshua and Fury, Jack, I have as much, excuse me, interest in Joshua and Fury as I do watching a replay of the Las Vegas Carolina Stanley Cup game.
Oh,
That's how much,
come
Jack, I am
on,
so
Frank.
tired. I'm telling you the truth. Will I watch it? Yes, I'll watch it just to see what happens. But as far as being interested in it and getting all hyped up about it, I just think they are the two most tiresome, annoying, boring fighters maybe in combat sports. I'm just tired of both of them. The fight is so overdue and past the sell-by date. So that's one thing. And the other thing I'll say is regarding last night's fight, okay, or the card, Jack, boxing has to take some lessons from MMA because there really were no mismatches and the fights were exciting. Even the ones that were a mismatch, they still were pretty exciting. And you know what? There really weren't any dull times. And it's like times in the event, and the fights kind of held my attention. And lastly, there was a guy who fought last night. They say, well, he was upset, but the thought was that Ilya Topuria, who's been going back and forth with Crawford because Crawford came out to the song he does when he fought Canelo. He said he could beat Crawford in a ring. He fought last night. He was 17-0. And Jack, I have to tell you this. He lost. It was an upset. But he was the best boxer I've ever seen in MMA. Jack, he threw body shots where he looked like Donald Curry slugging him in there. I mean, the guy I watched the fight with is a big MMA fan, and he said, Frank, he goes, I want you to tell me what you think of this guy's boxing when you see him. And he was the main event. And I'll tell you what, Jack, Topuria, this guy, he has probably the best hands I've ever seen in the UFC.
Let me ask you this. I didn't see it. I'm not a mixed martial arts fan, but I was watching the hockey game last night, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. See the Carolina Panthers beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights and win the cup. So I wasn't going to watch the UFC in the evening head-to-head with so deep into the Stanley Cup Finals. And
I had forgotten about the hockey game.
I'm not the biggest hockey fan, so I don't mean I'm not being.
I like the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoffs at the end, Game 6 of the championship round. I mean, then it gets to be serious. It got my attention. Where was it on? Was it on?
It was on Paramount Plus.
So you have to subscribe to it. I don't have Paramount Plus.
Right, I have Paramount Plus. Right. So that's why I saw it.
So if I wanted to see it, I'd have to subscribe to another app once again or whatever. And chances are, I'm not sure whether I get it on my TVs. I don't have smart TVs yet. My TVs are in great shape, but they're all a few years old. And I don't know whether I get it on that, whether I wouldn't. But
you know what, Jack? As technically advanced as we are, and Paramount's been around for a while, there were spots where it froze a few times during the round. It came right back, but it did freeze here and there. And it's like, apparently, I guess the subscription and the viewership was really big on that. But that was the main reason why I saw it, Jack, because all I had to do was go on Paramount a guy who I do martial arts with, he said, Frank, he goes, you want to watch the fight Sunday night? He said, you have Paramount, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, you want to watch it? I said, you know what? Sure, come on over. Now,
Well,
it didn't end until
entertainment.
1:30.
But that's my argument with Fury and Joshua. It's entertainment. I understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you, actually. The fight itself between Fury and Joshua, what's the big deal? They're both competent heavyweights at this point. Both of them are past their primes, competent, decent heavyweights. I would probably pick Moses Utama to beat both of them. I even think Daniel Dubois has already stopped Joshua. There's no reason why he wouldn't do it in a rematch. I don't see what Joshua is going to bring different in a rematch. And Dubois might be able to beat Fury right now, for all we know. But it doesn't mean it's not an entertaining fight itself. Sometimes when fighters are past their peak, they're still good enough where they could compete, and it's the personalities, it's the entertainment. Look,
well, and their names have been linked together for so long, Jack. That's what it is.
Yeah. But listen, we got guys now. Ryan Garcia, Conor Ben. That's not a mega fight in any way, shape, or form, but that might do the business of a mega fight. I mean, it gets hyped up. I mean, we get carried away. Speaking of that, Mayweather Pacquiao, we haven't heard anything. Is that going to come off late September now?
Jack, the only way I think that comes off is if Mayweather needs the money. And there's conflicting reports that he does, and there's conflicting reports that he does not. So I don't know. I'm sure Pacquiao wants it, but I believe if it happens, it's because Floyd needs the money.
But it's
not to pay his bills, but to maintain his lifestyle.
Right. But it's interesting if it does take place, because we want to see if Mayweather loses his own or not. And it's a be competitive fight at this point, I would think. But who knows? I mean, what I noticed too about fights in boxing, Frank, it's not given the big build up the way it used to be. Most of the interest takes place the week of, and it suddenly explodes. Like, we have a great fight on the horizon this month. Boots in Xander Zayas.
2 weeks from this past Saturday.
Yeah. And
it'll start up a week before the fight, Jack.
We have our guy we had on the show, Bryce Mills, being against Emiliano Vargas. I mean, that is a tremendous fight of prospects, Very rare that both guys are putting it on the line like that. But the talk, Vargas, Bryce Mills is going to get lost in the shuffle. That's going to get very little publicity. I mean, Vargas is still a prospect. I think he's 16-0. Bryce Mills has his big following in upstate New York. But we're going to look at Zayas and Boots is really going to, that's going to take off.
Jack, I'm excited for that fight. And I'm really excited for that fight because I have a couple of friends that really like Zayas' chances, where I don't. I think it'll be a good fight, but I don't see a path for him to win.
I'm going to tell you, I do see a path for him to win. I'm picking Boots, but I definitely don't think this is a one-sided fight where Boots is just going to completely dominate, win the first 6 rounds, beat up Zayas, and stop him in the 7th. I think Zayas could rise to the occasion and give him a decent fight, but when all is said and done, Boots' offense, we talk offense and defense, Boots has weaknesses. But
Boots is hittable, but so is Zayas.
Yeah, but Zayas is a little more versatile, I think. Boots is not going to fight well backing up. If Zayas can back him up at times, he could have success. That's the thing. Zayas could fight forward and side to side a little better. Boots is just great at what he does. That's the thing.
I disagree with you to the point that I actually think if Zayas tries to back Boots up, he could actually get hurt more.
Oh, well, of course. But there might come times where Boots is sloppy in the fight. And Zayas,
He's going to get hit. There's no doubt about that, Jack. He gets hit.
I mean,
He's not Terrence Crawford.
look at the guy who Boots beat twice by decision. What's his name? The guy who just lost to Patty Donovan, Roman, whatever.
I know you mean.
Right. Boots was worse.
I can't say his name.
Boots are right, exactly. Chadasima something.
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah. But Boots was worse in the second fight than he was in the first. And it went the distance. And Patty, Joe thinks it's going to be a very exciting fight.
I think that'll be the case as long as it lasts.
And the idea that Zayas has pushed for this fight, I mean, that means he has a tremendous self-belief to actually push for this fight. The last time I remember a guy pushed for a fight in this manner, one of the times I remember when the most feared guy was Antonio Margarito, and Paul Williams, they asked, who do you want to fight next? He says, I want Margarito next because he's the most avoided guy in boxing.
And he handled him.
He challenged him. He challenged the most avoided guy in boxing, and he beat him. And maybe
Jack,
there's a school of thought that maybe our next big star, I don't think so. I'm picking Boots like you are. Maybe it is Zayas. Maybe this is Xander Zayas' breakthrough fight. And if Zayas beats Boots, okay, it could even be by a close decision, he becomes a major star.
Sure, that'd be one of the best ones in the sport.
But not just that, his stock, he is one of the biggest names in the sport if he beats Boots, because Zayas would not be about hype. A guy like Ryan Garcia is about hype. Let's be honest about it. It's all about hype. He can fight. He's got talent, Ryan Garcia. I'm not saying he can't beat some good fighters. I mean, and I don't rate Mario Barrios as a good fighter per se. Ryan Garcia has still potential. Let's put it that way. He's like the baseball pitcher who could throw 100 miles per hour, but he hasn't put it all together after 5-6 seasons yet.
Jack, I think in the fight with Boots and Zayas, here's why I'm a little heavier on Boots than you are. I think it has a little Crawford Spence in it from the point that Crawford got a lot of hype, but there were a lot of doubters out there about his opposition, and they were not believers. And he knew in that fight, this is the fight. I need my A game, and I have to show them that I'm that guy. I think Boots is kind of in the same position because as highly as most people hold an opinion I value think of him, there is a faction out there, and it's not a small faction, that he hasn't fought anybody and he hasn't really been tested. And then I hear the fact that they say, as you've been saying, he gets hit. I think he looks at this as, if I'm ever going to be that guy in this sport, I not only have to win this fight, but I have to do it pretty conclusively. So I think that even though he didn't look good against Cherkan, the guy that went the distance with him twice, I think it could have been he couldn't get up for the guy. But I think in this fight, he has a guy who's young, who comes to fight, who has a name and belts. And I think that will bring out, I think it'll be the best Boots we've ever seen.
Boots is under more pressure for the simple reason.
Sure he is.
If Boots wins a close decision, it could be a great fight. It could be the fight of the year. His stock takes a little bit of a hit as far as how good he is. You know, he's not a pound-for-pound candidate per se. Zayas can lose a decisive decision, but if he fights very bravely, has his moments, right here or there, you know, he won't unravel. He could come again. You know, nothing's really lost here. Boots is the one under pressure. This got to be a statement fight for Boots, not just win. Winning in itself isn't quite
That's what I'm saying, Jack. He has to win. He has to win conclusively. So we're talking about, hey, maybe Boots is that guy.
We're about out of time, Frank. Next week we'll make our formal picks. I mean, we're both going to pick Boots, but in what manner, you know, how we expect it to
Right.
end. We'll formalize that next week. Good stuff today, and more boxing news will be coming down the pike next week.
All right, Jack, go tear up the city for the Knicks, and I guess we'll see you all next week.